Thank you and welcome to the show this morning. The topic this morning is the National Rifle Association and gun violence. And we're fortunate to have with us to talk about the National Rifle Association and gun violence, Alana McLaughlin. Now, Alana, let me welcome you to the show this morning. And I think, as we indicated earlier, this is your 8th year with us. And I'm sure that our audience is quite familiar with you, but just in case there might be somebody who might not know Alana McLaughlin, let's give you an opportunity to talk about your background, education, and some of your experiences, and then we'll get out of this first segment, and then we'll get into the second segment and start talking about the National Rifle Association and gun violence, or the National Rifle Association and gun laws, whichever you prefer. Let's start from that position.
Well, Dr. Haney, I've been with the show for the past 8 years. I started December of 2010. I'm a sophomore at the Nashville School of the Arts, where I study music, and I'm a trumpet major. Some extracurricular activities include cheerleading, church activities. I am a part of Pearl Cone High School's marching band, where I play trumpet. And I'm very musically inclined, but I always have had a knack for trying to teach the community, and especially people my age, about issues that are prevalent to today's society, to this world, but issues that aren't really in layman's terms in the news, which is why I'm talking about the NRA today, because we hear about the NRA, the NRA, the NRA, but what really is the NRA and what do they do? A lot of news stations fail to really explain the background and the history of the NRA and why they're so important today.
Very good. And so what we'll do, we'll give you an opportunity during that second segment to talk about the National Rifle Association. But in terms of some of the activities that you've been involved in school and in the general community, let's talk about it from that perspective. We've got about 3 minutes to do that, and I want to make sure that our audience has a pretty good idea in terms of who you are, what you're coming from.
Well, I am an alumna of the Junior National Young Leaders Conference based in Washington, D.C., which have greatly helped my public speaking skills and my leadership skills. I am also an alumna of both the Summer Camp for Academically Talented Students at the Center for Gifted Studies at Western Kentucky University, and the Summer Camp for Verbally and Mathematically Precocious Youth, also at the Center for Gifted Studies. I try to get into a lot of community-based organizations, for instance, student government, the SGA, and I like to be really community-based, the YMCA, the shelters, and I like to give back, basically.
Well, Laura, what motivated you to want to talk about the National Rifle Association and gun laws today?
Well, since my generation is really in the shadow of the Columbine high school shooting, and in the last decade or so, we've had a big spike in school shootings, and this all is under the umbrella of the big debate over gun control. For instance, we just had the Parkland High School shooting, mass shooting, and even a couple years ago in 2012 was the Sandy Hook Elementary School shooting, which really sparked the debate. And the NRA fell under lots of controversy under this, because around the Sandy Hook era, afterwards, people really wanted the NRA to advocate for stricter gun laws and to stop selling assault-style rifles, but they weren't really doing that, and that's what really sparked this debate. Now we're seeing more high school and college and even elementary school shootings and threats, and it all just comes back to, we need better gun control.
And so that's one of your real motives. As a matter of fact, I think many people of your age are meeting this weekend at a national activity.
The March for Our Lives this Saturday.
Say something about that.
The March for Our Lives is another one of the marches, just like the walkout that we experienced, I'd say, a week ago. The March for Our Lives is basically, I'd say, 13 to maybe 18-year-olds that are advocating for stricter gun rights and marching for our lives, fighting for more gun control, more background searches, and to stop the sale of assault-style rifles.
And so you think that this show that we're doing today will have a very, very good impact in terms of making more people in your category, your age group, more familiar with gun violence, guns, and et cetera, and it will have you will have an opportunity to help support the great effort that's being led this Saturday. Is that what we're saying in reference to what we're doing?
Of course, I want to be able to explain why we're marching for our lives and why we walked out of school last week and why all these things are happening and their importance in today's society.
Very good. And so what we'll do, we'll make arrangements for our first commercial break, and then we'll come back and give you an opportunity to talk about the National Rifle Association, to say something about its founding and some of the individuals who are involved, and in a real sense, its motivation. And then we'll have an opportunity to get into the National Rifle Association and gun violence. And we'll be back with our audience following this very, very short commercial break. Thank you and welcome back to the second segment of the show for today. The topic is the National Rifle Association and gun violence and gun laws. And we're fortunate again to have Alana McLaughlin. Now, Alana, let's see if we can pick up where we left off the last time and give you an opportunity to further say something about the National Rifle Association.
Well, Dr. Haney, let's answer the big question that the show is all about. Well, let's talk about what the show is about. First, let's start with what is the NRA. The National Rifle Association, commonly known as the NRA, is a nonprofit organization that advocates gun rights. Simple enough. Founded in 1871, but now headquartered in Fairfax, Virginia, and led by CEO Wayne LaPierre. The NRA is a very controversial organization, and they're controversial for many reasons. One being their very outspoken CEO and their even more outspoken members, which they have more than 4.5 million members. Some of their more popular members would be, formerly was President H.W. Bush, or George H.W. Bush, or Sarah Palin, and also actress Whoopi Goldberg. But the NRA is controversial for many reasons, one being the fact that they have such an influence over Congress and elections and polls. The NRA has a very strong political stronghold in the American government, mainly because since they have such a large membership, the things that the group advocates affect their members, and that affects their members' votes. For instance, the NRA has public voting periods where they'll grade members of Congress from A to F, like in letter grades, based on their friendliness towards gun rights. A low grade, like a D or a F, actually all grades affect the poll numbers, and a low grade could seriously cost a candidate their seat. Also, something interesting that a lot of people don't know is that the NRA has a $3.2 million budget set in place to help influence candidates in the government to steer clear of gun control. Basically meaning that they have $3.2 million to blow on bribing people not to talk about gun control. That is insane. That basically goes to show how much power the American government has and how much power these organizations have. Like, people like to talk about the Illuminati and all this. No, the NRA is just as important and is just as prevalent, if not more prevalent, in today's society. The NRA came under large controversy back in 2012 with the Sandy Hook Elementary School mass shooting, because lots and lots of people after that shooting wanted to advocate for just the end of them selling assault-style weapons, the end of assault-style guns. And the NRA was not advocating for that. The NRA has kind of been flip-floppy on their opinions. For instance, half the time they do want universal background checks for people who are trying to purchase guns, and half the time they don't believe that that's necessary. But the one thing that is always true with the NRA is that they will fight to the death for the Second Amendment. Wayne LaPierre was even quoted after the Sandy Hook shooting saying that they would have to pry his assault-style weapon from his dead hands if they wanted to take it from him, which is something that is just so insensitive to say after tens of kids were killed with an assault-style weapon. That why should a civilian have an assault-style weapon? That there's just no correlation for that. No civilian should just be walking the streets, and this is just my opinion, should be walking the streets with an assault-style weapon knowing that they could hurt someone. But the NRA and their 4.5 million members don't agree with that, and that's what makes them such a controversial group.
And so in a real sense, this organization plays a significant role in terms of dealing with guns, and when we talk about guns, we mean guns and all type of armament, from the assault rifle to a pistol or whatever. If it shoots a bullet, yes, the NRA is concerned in reference to it.
And another crazy thing is that our president has such close ties with the NRA to where he's just publicly uplifted the NRA while also saying that, you know, since he's just very tight-knit with the NRA, he doesn't always agree with everything that they preach, but by the looks of it, he does. I mean, he has never spoken out against the NRA or against their policies or against their beliefs, so I mean, but nevertheless, the NRA is just very outspoken and very hard to understand, which is why I'm trying to make a show about this and trying to break it down and describe the pros and the cons of it. I mean, the pros, they are staying true to the Second Amendment of the U.S. Constitution.
Which is the Second Amendment to the Constitution.
Oh, the right to bear arms. Mm-hmm. And, you know, they have a very patriotic spirit, and they're very pro-America, which can all be pros, but this also relates to the show that we did about, you know, extremism, and, you know, when you take a good thing and you push it and push it and push it, it can turn into a bad thing, which is kind of the issue with the NRA. They teeter on being a terrorist group. Lots of Democrats and liberals actually have labeled the NRA as a terrorist group because of their outspoken and unorthodox ways of getting across their mission statements and what their beliefs really, and the unfair way that they kind of rig polls. Like I said, with the candidates, a perfectly good candidate who believes in gun control will almost just not have a chance of having a seat, simply because if the NRA speaks out, that whole organization plus their 4.5 million members are not voting for this person. It's just almost impossible to win at that point. So the NRA is just very, very influential in today's society, and especially in our government. And it's really odd to think about.
In a real sense, this organization is powerful enough to determine whether or not there's gun control or gun laws or whatever passed, and it does it primarily because it has influence in American government, in the House and in the Senate. And what you're saying is that by the very, very fact that they can either support or oppose a candidate that can determine whether or not the candidate is successful in a race for the most part.
Yes, and the NRA, the reason that students and teenagers and adolescents are marching for our lives and walking out of school and protesting gun violence is because we don't have the same advantages as the NRA. We don't have the 4.5 million people behind us. We don't have the $3.2 million budget to help influence the government to stand behind us. We don't have that. But the kids that are affected by gun violence and by these school shootings and these mass shootings want to advocate for rights, but just can't do that.
And so what we'll do, we'll take this final break, and then we'll come back and we'll talk about some other aspects. And we'll be back with our audience following our short commercial break. Thank you and welcome back to the final segment of the show for today. The topic is the National Rifle Association and gun laws or gun violence. And we have with us to continue this conversation, Alana McLaughlin. Now, Alana, let's pick up for this final 10 minutes of the show to give you an opportunity to talk about other aspects of the National Rifle Association. And for the most part, to tell us something about how your age group, the people that fall within from 13 to 17 years old, feel about guns and some of the things that they are doing in terms of dealing with this whole issue of gun violence.
Well, to reiterate kind of what was said in the previous segment for people just tuning in, the National Rifle Association, better known as the NRA, is a non-profit organization that was founded in 1871 that basically heavily advocates for gun rights and heavily wants to keep hold on the Second Amendment to the Constitution, which is the right to bear arms. And basically, they're headquartered in Fairfax, Virginia, and led by CEO Wayne LaPierre. And basically what the NRA does is they make sure that their guns are not getting taken. They make sure that their gun rights will not be taken away. And they take it to such an extreme that while, yes, we should stay true to the amendments and know that we do have the right to bear arms always, but when it comes to assault-style weapons and rifles and not having that good of background checks when trying to purchase a weapon, it comes the debate that, you know, we need to do something about this. These mass shootings in these high schools and elementary schools that have been happening all over the country, even so far back as Columbine in the 90s, people have been really talking about we need to either end the sale of assault-style weapons or just heavier background checks. And then it poses the question, why does a civilian need an assault-style weapon? But these are all opinion-based questions, but these questions are very fresh to today's society, and they're very important in our society because with the spike in school shootings and the threat of school shootings, it makes you wonder how easy it is to get an assault-style weapon, and then it makes you wonder how easy it is to take that and to injure tens and hundreds of people, even from like the Las Vegas shooting, the Parkland High School shooting, the Sandy Hook Elementary School shooting, even so far back, like I said, it's Columbine. We really have to sit and think, why are people being allowed to get these assault-style weapons, and why is the government and why are congressional candidates not speaking out about this? And the answer to that is money, hush money. If you go on the NRA's website or even just look at an article that's not fake news, you will see that the NRA has a $3.2 million budget set in place to help influence congressional candidates to steer clear of gun control. Basically saying that they have all this money laying around to pay people not to talk about gun control. And then their 4.5 million members are just easily swayed in the opinion of the group, so that when the NRA does their annual grading periods where they rate congressional candidates from A to F based on their friendliness towards gun rights, low grades equals less votes or close to no votes from the members of the NRA, which would be 4.5 million Americans. And then if you're losing millions and millions of votes, that's your seat right there. You know, you're out basically.
Lana, now let's see, in terms of the information that you're given now, and your school age is between 13 and 17 years old, which is to say members at your school.
Well, I'd say my school age since I'm in high school would be like 15 to 18.
18 years old. Well, now how many people that you know understand what you're talking about in reference to the National Rifle Association and what Congress has to do, and the realization that one day they will be able to vote? You see, because you're talking about now, some of your peers will probably be able to vote next year. And do you think that many of them are as aware of the National Rifle Association as you are in terms of the kind of information that you're giving us today? And if so, yes, and if not, why?
Yes and no. Yes, they have felt the effects of the NRA, the government not talking about gun control, and then our friends and family and peers being killed in mass shootings, and then wondering why there's no outcry about this. Yes, they have felt the effects of the NRA covering things up, but no, they don't understand the magnitude of the NRA, how big of a hold they have on the American government, how big of a hold they have on polls, on candidates, and how big of a hold they have simply on the sale of assault-style rifles. So I believe that no, not a lot of people understand the magnitude of how important the NRA is and how vital they are to the sale of weapons and stopping the sale of weapons, but they do understand that there needs to be change. Well, that's the opinion of the people that are doing the March for Our Lives this weekend, or the people who walked out of school. That walkout was, I'd say, 50% in solidarity with the 17 kids that were killed in the Parkland High School shooting, but also it was to advocate the fact that that wouldn't have happened if assault-style weapons just weren't sold to civilians. That wouldn't have happened if we had stricter gun control laws. That wouldn't have happened if we just had heavier background checks and all of that. Why was this person able to get a weapon like that? Why did this happen? And now, a big thing that people like to say is that, you know, guns, that people kill, the guns aren't just gonna up and kill you, but the people killing you with the gun, the question can go either way, honestly. But the question that just rings true is the fact that, why do people need this? Why are people able to sell this? What are the pros of these assault-style weapons, and why are they necessary? Because we see that since this spike in all these shootings, people are not using them for good. So do you want to either continue to have these shootings or get rid of them and probably have a decrease in all these school shootings and these mass shootings, ranging from churches to hotels to high schools, elementary schools. So people are really on either side. Everyone's either on one side or the other. No one, I'd say, is really truly neutral. Some people be like, well, I just don't care. But, you know, if you're affected by it, especially the people in the Parkland High School shooting, now those teenagers who, by the grace of God, survived, are advocating heavily for stricter gun control because they saw firsthand what the lack of gun control can do. They saw that, they experienced that. And you can't deny the fact that they experienced that. You can't deny their opinions because they have felt it harder than most of us will. Those 17 kids in Parkland, have seen firsthand and lost their lives due to the lack of gun control. So I personally do not believe that the 4.5 million members of the NRA have the right to tell those 17 kids who died that they're wrong or that they don't have a say in this, because they do. If they had a say in it, they more than likely would be alive today.
You know, I think some people suggest, Lana, that the generation, your generation, coming of age and being able to participate in the suffrage will be able to, in a real sense, have something to say in reference to guns and gun violence and et cetera. How many people do you know in your situation that are familiar with the voting process that has become a part of what you're doing? Are there many people involved in becoming aware of voting at your school? And if so, who are they? And if not, why not?
I would say that before all of this happened, in just the last couple of months, no. But ever so recently, they've learned, I'd say that my peers have learned the importance of voting, how voting can help combat groups like the NRA who pay people to be hush-hush. Because if we have a big enough, if we all come together and have a big enough voice to be able to challenge the NRA and challenge the things that they say and the things that they do, we can be able to make a change, but people just aren't really realizing that. That's why we have the show today, to break this down and to show the magnitude of it, show that either you can join your fellow peers and advocate for gun control, or you could be anti-gun control.
Or you could be a voter, and that's essentially what we are concerned about here. And this is the information that I want to make sure that we get out this morning to make young people understand that while they can organize and come together in reference to the National Rifle Association, but it's more important, or as important, that they become aware of the suffrage, get out, register to vote, and participate in the suffrage. And so I think that that's the point we're trying to make this morning. And let me thank you, and let me thank our audience, and encourage you to tune in again next week for another informative edition of Comments. Thank you, and good morning.
Testing, testing, mic check, 1, 2, 3. Born in Tennessee, I guess, somewhere around there. Go to-
One, two, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 1, 2.
Just put it behind you.
I can't see back there.
Oh, I can. You just.
How about right here? Can I do it like that?
Yes,
And then
sir.
I put it in there like that?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Now hold it so we can get back up there.
Thank you. All right. Can you hear me now? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
Oh, okay.
Is that collar blocking that?
Yeah, it's just making them sound muffled. Okay, let's try now.
Howard Allen, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
Keep going.
11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30. All righty.
Is everything? Welcome to the show this morning. The topic this morning is the Poor People's Campaign in Tennessee. And we have to talk about the Poor People's Campaign in Tennessee, Pastor Walker, Kelly Gregory, and Howard Allen. And of course, let me welcome you, Pastor Walker, Kelly, and Ms. Gregory, and Mr. Allen to the show this morning. And Pastor, let's start off with you by having you to give us some information in reference to your background, education, and some of your experiences. And then Ms. Gregory will do the same thing in reference to her background, education, and experience. Allen will close us out in this first segment by speaking of his background, education, and experience, and then we'll be out of that segment.
All right, Dr. Haney, first of all, thank you once again. You know, we've done quite a few shows with you, and I think yes, we have. And I thank God for that. You know, my name is Pastor Kelvin L. Walker. I'm currently the associate pastor of Fairfield Missionary Baptist Church under the leadership of Senior Pastor Howard Jones Jr. Born and raised right here in Nashville, Tennessee. Two lovely parents that taught me well that I didn't always listen to, and took a wayward pathway in life, and education that I was educated in the public school systems of Davidson County, Nashville, Tennessee, up until a point where I was actually put out of the school system because of extortion. And from there, got in some trouble out there in the streets, want to be a tough guy and stuff like that. Ended up shooting the guy, going into the military, went into the Navy, got out of the Navy. Well, prior to going into the Navy, got out of the Navy actually, and came out of the Navy, got a GED, the Opportunity Industrialization Center, OIC, right here in Nashville, was in South Nashville at the time. Then from there, I went to Tennessee State University, spent some time there with my drug addiction, kind of derailed my educational processes. And then from there, I ended up incarcerated in the Tennessee State prison system as well. And from there, I did some studies at Trevecca East Campus Prison Program, did some studies there, got out of the prison system, did some studies with Edmondson Junior College, which is now defunct for many years, but never completed any degree in anything. But there's a measure of knowledge that I have in terms of just living this life out here and helping and working with people. And that's who I am. That's where I stand now.
Very good. Ms. Gregory?
Thank you, Dr. Haney. My name is Kelly Gregory, and I am with a group called Moral Movement Tennessee. And I came to that work through my activism, my healthcare activism. During a portion of my life in my 30s, I experienced some health difficulties and had my health insurance. I had to drop my health insurance and was locked out of the healthcare system for quite some time. And as a result of that, I during that period was developing a tumor in my left breast that was not discovered until my cancer was symptomatic in 2011. And in 2011, I was diagnosed with terminal metastatic breast cancer and given not much time to live. I've obviously exceeded expectations in that. And through my treatment, became aware that I had a story to tell and some abilities to do that. And once I was at a point in my treatment that I was well enough to get out and start being active, I joined with Moral Movement Tennessee last spring and have been working towards a more just and better world for the last year. I'm also a decorated veteran, a former military intelligence officer, and a native of the area. My family's lived here in this part of the state for over 200 years.
Very good. Allen?
Yeah, I'm Howard Allen. It's a pleasure to be here again with you, Dr. Haney. I'm homegrown. I'm a Nashvilleian, born and raised, reared here. I went to private school. I have 3 years of college, 2 years at Tennessee State, and a year at Texas Southern. And I had a very good life. I come from a well-to-do family. But then all that took a change one day, and now I'm part of what people call in this society homeless. I'm houseless. And like Reverend Walker, I didn't have a degree from college, but since I've become homeless, I have a doctorate I have a PhD and a master's and an EDS.
You know what it means to be in homeless. And yes.
Survival.
Oh, very good.
Know, and when I was growing up, I lived. Right now, I'm surviving.
Very good.
Surviving.
And of course, what we'll do, Mr. Allen, is to take this first commercial break,
okay,
and then we'll come back and have the three of you to talk about the topic of the day, and that is the Poor People's Campaign in Tennessee.
Okay.
As a matter of fact, we'll start off with you when we come back, and then come down and have Pastor Walker to close us out of this 8-minute segment. And we'll be back with our audience following this very, very short commercial break. Thank you and welcome back to the second segment of the show for today. We're talking to Pastor Walker, Ms. Gregory, and Mr. Howard in reference to the Poor People's Campaign in Tennessee. And I think, Mr. Howard, we sort of cut you short on that first segment. So let's have you start us off by talking about some aspects of the Poor People's Campaign in Tennessee, its organization, or however you wish to deal with that. And Ms. Gregory will continue that, and Pastor Walker will close us out for this 8-minute segment.
Well, like Ms. Gregory said, I became part of the moral movement of Tennessee last spring. And I have a grassroots organization called the Nashville Homeless Underground, and I'm always fighting against the social injustice. And I had the pleasure of meeting Dr. Reverend William J. Barber II, this founded the Moral Monday, and then it became the Moral Movement. And he came to Tennessee, and I became a part of it because this is dealing with people of poverty. We have over 140 million people in the United States that live in poverty. And I'm in a community that lives beyond poverty because I'm homeless. I'm on the street. And I wanted to take this challenge and let the homeless know that we're a part of this. When Dr. King was living with the Poor People's Campaign, back during that time period, people took care of each other. Now we have an epidemic of homeless people. We have people that are living in poverty that can't stay in their housing. So this is a radical love movement, and that's what we're dealing with, and I want my brothers and sisters in the homeless community to know that we're a part of this. You can't have a poor people's campaign without talking about homelessness. And so I'm putting a face on homelessness. A lot of people say, what does homelessness look like? This is what it looks like, you know? So we're not stereotyped, we're often talked about, but always overlooked. So here it is, we're coming together, we're getting organized. And you know, one of the best things when we had slavery back in the day, for us to eradicate it, is when we came together. So now I'm letting people know, the homeless people, people in poverty, people that feel what I'm saying, silence is no option now. We're gonna come together and we're gonna show radical love.
Very good. Gregory?
Dr. Haney, the National Poor People's Campaign is the full title of it is the Poor People's Campaign, a national call for moral revival. And that is what we were seeking to do, is we are seeking to revive the conversation in this country and bring it around to what is not about left and right or liberal and conservative or even Democrat and Republican. That's not the conversation that we want to have, and that's not what we're about. We're about talking about what is right and what is wrong, and what is moral and what is immoral. And so what we've been led to do, this is the 50th anniversary of the first Poor People's Campaign, which was begun in 1968 by Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King. And the success of that campaign was thwarted by his assassination in April of that year, and then Bobby Kennedy's assassination later on, and the spirit just left folks. They were so disheartened, and what we were doing, we are not commemorating Dr. King's movement. This is now a kickoff and a continuation.
Continuation of the first movement.
We are reaching down into the blood of the martyrs and picking up the baton and carrying it. And we are organizing poor people of all races. We are organizing people of all faiths. We have people participating who are Native American, Jew, Muslim, Buddhist, B'nai, Hindu, Christian, and people of no faith but good faith. And we are ready to talk about the pillars of injustice that Dr. King identified in the 60s, which the four pillars are systemic poverty, systemic racism, ecological devastation, and the war economy. And those injustices have not changed in 50 years. We're still dealing with those same injustices. And so what we are doing is seeking to have a real conversation and to come together and to understand that poor people, no matter what our race, no matter what our creed, that we have more in common with each other than we are led to believe by the power structure. And that's our organizing force.
Very good. Pastor Walker.
You know, what's amazing to me, Dr. Haney, is that, you know, we're taught to believe that America is a Christian country found on Christian principles. But if you look at the history of America, you find it's anything but Christian.
Come on
you know,
now.
Because the reality of it is, you know, how can you be, according to my understanding of the Word of God, you know, it's supposed to be based upon love. It's rooted in love. You know, he said, if you have love one toward another, by this shall all men know that you're my disciple. But when there's a lack of morality that exists in this land that we call the land of the free, the home of the brave, it causes alarm and it causes questions in my mind. You know, what is this thing really about? You know, when I'm looking at, you know, I've been working for the last 31 years of my life, going on 32 years. It's been my life's work, you know, to reach out to the less fortunate, the underserved, the homeless, the drug addicted, the alcoholic, and the like. You know, and I'm seeing now, Dr. Haney, that it's not diminishing, it's increasing. You know, it's because of the systemic racism and all the other things that's embedded in this American system. You know, you come in and you take a town like Nashville, Tennessee, and they just, you know, I mean, it's the it city now, but it's also the city that's disenfranchising people on a greater number. You know, you look at the school system. The school enrollment is lower now because people are not able to afford to live in Davidson County. So they're having to leave Davidson County because the cost of living is going up so much. The wages are not increasing, but the cost of living is. And the housing market is increasing. The feds are raising the interest rates just recently. You know, so now it's becoming even more difficult, and they're creating a different homeless. People used to look at, oh, you're homeless because you're on drugs. You're homeless because you're an alcoholic. But hey, wait a minute. You're homeless because you got a medical situation that devastated your home economy, and you can no longer afford it because your medical bills wiped you out. Or you're homeless because the cost of living has maintaining your place to live has caused you to not be able to afford that, and now there's no open doors over here for you to walk into because everybody is renting and raising to a place where you can't afford.
Very good. And as we prepare to close this segment out, it's instructive to think that this is a recreation of an organization that was established in the 60s, and we are still trying to reach the goals that were laid out then.
Absolutely.
But nevertheless, I think we will be able to do so, and what we'll do, we'll take our second commercial break, and we'll be back with our audience following this short commercial break. Thank you, and welcome back to the final segment of the show for the morning. We're talking to Alan, Gregory, and Walker in reference to the Poor People's Campaign in Tennessee. Walker, not Walker, but Howard, let's see if we can have you to start us off with this last segment and to give us some information. I think you've already mentioned the important part that Reverend Gregory, Reverend Barber is playing in reference to that. And let me also say that I believe that Reverend Barber is a great person. And I wish that I would have had an opportunity when he was in Nashville to interview him. But nevertheless, let's have you to start us off, and Gregory will give us some additional information, and Pastor Walker will have an opportunity to close us out for this 10-minute segment for the morning.
Well, I'm going to kind of piggyback off of what Reverend Walker just said, dealing with the homeless community. In our community, we have a lot of people that have lost their self-identity, their self-esteem. And like I said, I'm no different from anyone else. You're my brother, Dr. Haney, whether you want to be or not. And what I want to show them is that if I can do this, you can do this. We need a support group. We need a safety net. I want people over profit. You know, when we go back into time with the African Americans, we were in slavery for over 400 years. And then we have a minimum wage today of $7.25. So that's something wrong. It's something wrong with that. So this is design. It's a wall that needs to be tore down, people of poverty and in the homeless. And when I hear about the least of thee, what people don't realize is that they are the least of thee. You know, where are, as Reverend Walker said, where are these Christians? You know, I saw a sign at Mount Galilee Church that says, if you're a Christian, either you're a missionary or you're an imposter. So it seems like I'm seeing a bunch of imposters in the inner city. So we're here to show that that trickle-down effect can work, even though it's a lie right now because it's not benefiting people of poverty. And it's going to take a we thing, we people coming together. And it's all about love. It's all about love.
Preach.
And I think, Pastor, you could, Gregory, I think you could speak to that in reference to that. It seems that that's a chord that hits you.
It does, Doctor. We are, as Dr. King said many years ago, budgets are moral documents. Just like your budget that you sit down with as a family to make, that budget is a reflection of your values. That's why tithing is such an important part of your spiritual growth in all faiths, not just the Christian faith. And so what we want to talk about is the immorality of how we spend our federal and state dollars. That we are all impacted by the immorality of how we choose to spend our money. When we spend, we're going to come up this next fiscal year over $800 billion just on the Department of Defense. When we spend just under $100 billion on the food stamp program. And I'm a veteran. I come from a long line of veterans, and I'm very proud to have served my country. There are 25,000 families, active duty military families in the United States right now who rely on food stamps for their food security. That $800 billion that we are spending on the Department of Defense is not going for pay raises for troops. It's not going for better and more housing for troops. It's going to go in the pockets of defense contractors to build more big shiny things that go boom. And we've got to have a conversation because folks in power have been able to use the issue of race to turn white poor people and poor people of color against one another. They have used it because they have come in and said, the reason you don't have a good job is because that brown person from Mexico is taking your job. The reason we can't build affordable housing for Howard is because we've got to spend money on Medicaid, Kelly. I'm covered by Medicaid now because of my cancer. So we can't build housing for Howard. And what we want to do is bring people together in an open conversation and have folks understand that Howard and I have more in common with each other than I do with the folks in power.
Very good. Finish.
I don't know, Dr. Haney, it's just so crazy in this country how things are so out of whack, and especially now with this current presidential administration that we have in D.C. now that clearly doesn't care and has no concern about the people that we're referencing right here on this show, the people that are, I guess you could say, on the lowest rung of the ladder. Especially the economic ladder, and
the least of these.
Yeah, the least of these, and there's no concern. It's sickening to hear them tout about the greatest tax cut in the history of America.
Preach.
With the corporate rates being permanent, and those for the pertaining to us are not. So it says to this, no matter what, this is going to be your tax rate. And then you come up with this fake stuff about these companies giving bonuses, you know, because, and they're trying to say it's because of that. Well, if you could give a bonus after this tax cut, you could have given that same bonus before. And a bonus is exactly what it is. It's a one-time deal that doesn't mean anything. You give me a Christmas bonus, that means you gave me something in December that doesn't do nothing for me the rest of the year.
Yeah.
That's essentially what it is.
That's all it
Exactly.
is. So, you know, it's meaningless. Dr. Henry, it don't mean anything. And then for you to have systems in place that, you know, you got a presidential administration comes in and gives us universal health care, and then you got the ones after that his only agenda is to destroy everything that the prior president created. You know, instead of saying, okay, Obamacare, the Affordable Care Act, it doesn't give us all that we need, but we got something that we can tweak and make it work. But instead of doing that, we want to just destroy it. And so in the process of doing that, we're disenfranchised and we're driving more people to homelessness, because now people that could get insurance for pre-existing conditions, that you're messing that up. Now you got people that need these surgeries and different things. I see them. I work with them. I serve these people. And they can't get the medical services that they need. They go to the hospital with serious conditions. The hospital put a Band-Aid on them, dump them right back out of there, and they don't do nothing for them. But we got an administration that doesn't care about people. We got a country that doesn't care about people. And we have to bring this, you know, it's the thing about it. And let me say this. Right here in the state of Tennessee, in the zip code 37208, it just came out with a study that says there's a highest rate of incarceration and poverty in this zip code in the whole nation. We rank #1 in the nation in just this one zip code. And it consists mainly of poor people and African Americans. But who cares who's doing anything about it? There needs to be a moral movement, and there needs to be an economical movement in order to solve these situations, these problems. But who's trying to do it? Nobody. They're focusing on the upper tiers. And as long as we can get these people what they need, forget about everybody else. And so everybody else is suffering. And while we run around calling Nashville, Tennessee the it city, yeah, it is the it city. It's the city that puts its citizens in the streets, homeless, and in disregard. Yeah, we're the it city. We're the one that shine. We're the shining light of an example of a city that doesn't care about the inhabitants of this city. And people are coming here in droves to be mistreated.
What do you have to say about that?
I agree 100%. All I can say is amen. Amen.
Dr. Haney, we've got today in the Tennessee State Legislature, they're going to pass a bill that puts new requirements on Medicaid recipients, that puts work requirements on Medicaid recipients.
Wow, crazy.
This bill is going to cost the state $40 million more over what it's going to save when it kicks people off. And it's not a bill to make Medicaid more efficient. It's not a bill to bring more people in. It is a bill to harass and punish
those folks who own the system who are not working. Who are not.
It is out of spite.
Right.
They can't work.
And it's an attempt to make people feel ashamed for the fact that they need help. When we all in this world at some point are going to need help from someone else. We are all going to be sick at some point. We are all going to need medical care.
Very good. Of course, let me, during this last half minute, thank the three of you for bringing that information by. And I like your passion in reference to this. And I think the idea of continuing this Poor People's Campaign is a good idea. And so we want to make sure that we support all of these ideas that you're talking about. And let me encourage our audience to tune in again next week for another informative edition of Comments. Thank you and good morning.
to help the poor.
Okay.
Service was the key word.
Okay.
And so all of these monuments are really antithetical to what he really wanted.
He might have his monument on the National Mall.
Yeah.
But he would prefer something else.
And he got monuments around the world. He got a statue in Westminster Abbey in Great Britain.
Oh yeah.
There's a church named after him in Hungary.
Okay. Well,
Okay. There's the Martin Luther King Park in Israel.
Okay. Well,
So, but all of these monuments
still don't.
they don't really. Yeah, exactly. It's not what he was about. And then the last segment. The last segment is to.
Dr. Haney,
Appreciate you, Greg.
thank you so much.
Appreciate you. Thank you
so
very
much.
Yeah. And good luck to you.
Thank you.
That's,
Thank you.
You know Janet Wolf?
The name smells
Yeah, she's in that group too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're starting to come together. We're mobilizing now.
Yeah.
Thought for the campaign is Mother's Day.
Oh, very good.
That's great. That's great.
Excellent. Thank you.
And then I thought in the last segment we'll look at where do we go from here.
Okay.
That's the question he asked
Okay.
in his last book. That was his last question.
Okay. Very good.
Just a little bit.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, I remember him. Yeah.
Yeah, because when she said the name, I was like, I know. She's like, he graduated from Fisk. I was like, he was valedictorian.
Yeah,
He's like, yeah, you believe it.
Sure did. I remember him.
Yeah. Where do we go from here?
Okay.
What are we in sight of the promised land?
Okay. 50th anniversary.
Yeah, and he talked about the promised land in that last speech. Are we in sight of the promised land?
Okay. You know what you want. Thank you and welcome to the show this morning. The topic this morning is the 50th anniversary of the assassination of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And we're fortunate to have with us to talk about Dr. Martin Luther King's 50th anniversary assassination, Dr. Lewis Baldwin. And Dr. Baldwin, need I say that you've been with us for a long time, from the very, very beginning. And each time, Dr. Baldwin, no matter how many times you come and talk about the same thing, you bring us additional information in reference to what that same thing is. And so we're just delighted to have you here today to talk about the 50th anniversary of the assassination